Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Photographer's Favorites. Thank you so much for joining. This is the show where I pick 5 of my favorite photos from other photographers, and my guest picks 5 of their favorite photos from other photographers, and we talk about everything we love, all the good stuff, all the amazing stuff, because we got some great shots to go over today. Today, I'm really excited to have my guest, Kyle Rose, with me. How's it going, Kyle?
Hey, all right. Thanks so much for having me on. It's like just super cool to be here,
Yeah,
being on here
definitely.
and getting to talk about all these fantastic photos and photographers. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you setting aside the time, man. And I got a quick sneak peek at some of the photos you chose and some great stuff. So I'm definitely excited to get into that. But real quick, any fun photography you've been up to lately?
Yeah, been working on rabbits a lot, specifically trying to do wide angle. So
Nice.
super, super, super tough.
Yeah,
I the only wide angle photo I've successfully gotten was a turtle, and they just kind of sit there.
yeah,
So all I had to do was sit and wait, and eventually came out of its shell. But these
definitely.
rabbits, man, like I've gotten so close that I have a shot of one basically exactly where I want it, but it's hopping the other direction.
Oh,
So so yeah, and I've been set up at one spot where I see them. I had like 3 in the area that I knew were there. I set up, they all scampered off, but I was
yeah,
hiding and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And I thought,
yeah.
I'm gonna go check this other spot. Walk back, and all 3 of them were sitting like 50 yards behind me, all
Really?
together. Yeah, in one spot. And I was like, of
Yeah.
course.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's
That's
sort of been my project lately, and it's
oh,
tough.
that sounds insanely fun and insanely infuriating at the same time.
Oh yeah. I keep saying I feel like Elmer Fudd,
Yeah.
like Wascoy
Just
Wabbits.
constantly behind you, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so funny. But that's going to be cool if you get it, man. That's going to be very rewarding. So,
Yeah, yeah, I'm hoping
yeah.
so. Now I'm
How
looking
much
at
more how much more time do you think you have in you to keep trying? Like, are you the type that's just going to keep going and going until you get it, or are you going to hit a point where you're like, you know what, I need a break from this, and then maybe get back to it again later? Like, because I know that would be me. Like, I can't just keep going. I'll get too kind of annoyed, and I'll kind of break it up. But how about you?
well, this past week has sort of been that break for me. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't like I've had enough of this. It
Yeah,
was, sort of just ended up being busy and sort of
life gets in the
slacking
way.
off. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
But I like to think of myself as the kind of person who will like just keep going until
Okay.
I literally can't anymore,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for whatever reason. And now I just had another idea, which is that at one of the spots that I'm trying to shoot them, in theory, I think the sun rises like right behind it. So now
Okay.
I'm thinking like getting like trying to do a composite shot of the sunrise behind it, and then hopefully a rabbit
Get a
wide
rabbit
angle
there.
in the front. I keep coming up with more ideas
I
that I
love that
want
you
to.
haven't gotten one yet, and you're already making it more difficult. That's the sign of a good photographer, right there.
Well, I appreciate it. That good, maybe smart,
Yeah,
probably not,
well,
but
those never go together, really. Yeah, so.
right.
Oh, great, man. Well, listen, I hope it works out for you. I look forward to seeing what you get with the project. It does sound like a fun thing to spend some time doing, though. So it gets you outside, right? And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, totally,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right, cool. You ready to get into the show?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, dude, let's do it. Here we go. We'll start with the first photo that you chose from Derek. Killer image. Speaking of wide angle, right? Great tie in
Right.
with the first image here. Well done. Yeah, love this shot. I mean, come on, that stormy cloud background is just ridiculous, man. A beautiful wide angle scene behind it, just classic, showing off the habitat, that wide open space that goes, way off into the distance into the horizon. I love, obviously, right, the grasshopper singing right at you, grasshopper sparrow, I should say, singing right at the camera is really nice like that. Like, I love when you get to see right down the throat there. It's a really good size for the wide angle too. So I really can appreciate that, because I know how close the lens has to be to a bird this size to get it that for. I mean, we're talking like this far away from the lens kind of thing, usually. And so I think a lot of people maybe see these types of images, and they don't understand, like, oh, that, 24 millimeter, a tiny bird like that was on top of this camera. And that's one of the big challenges, because in my experience, they seem to be so aware of cameras. Like, you can camouflage it to death, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, there's a lens there," and they won't go to their favorite perch, or come near it. So, love the stormy cloud background. It gives it such a sense of drama, like this impending weather coming in, and just a great balance over here on the third. I love these larger bushes kind of anchoring each side of the frame as well. And yeah, dude, just all around a great shot, man.
Yeah, totally. I actually I think I like shared this on my Instagram story, and Derek and I got to talking about wide angle and stuff, and he yeah described like the situation and how he just saw the bird keep going to the perch
Yeah.
and just set up his camera and it went right back and started singing. I'm like,
Wow.
first of all, super jealous.
Yeah.
Second of all, I mean, it's just the fact that there's also no other like distracting branches right in the foreground here. It's just the bird on the perch and then it melts right into the background.
Yeah.
And also I love the cool tones in the sky
Yes. Yep.
versus the warmer tones down below. And also just the sort of like lines going through the background of the vegetation and everything.
Yeah, like in
It's
here and yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's just, and also the subtle like pinkish color off to the right in the sky. It's just everything obviously lined up perfectly for this
No doubt.
photo, and yeah, it really comes through. Yeah.
Yeah. That's I I hope that it doesn't drive him insane that the next time he tries something like this, it is not going to be as easy as you just described him saying it was.
Right. And not to, of course, not to
Say it was super easy. No.
right, exactly, yeah. And I'm sure he had to put in all the necessary work, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
Derek is a
But
fantastic photographer, so I
oh
don't
yeah,
doubt
no
that,
doubt.
but
No, I know he puts the effort in. Yeah, I had the privilege of working with him. He joined me to photograph loons a couple years ago. So, but yeah, it's so fun. I mean, talk about like you were talking about, right? The rabbit facing the wrong way. I mean, they'll land on the perch facing the wrong way so many times. They'll land. Dude, I feel like more often than not, I have these setups and the bird will land on top of my camera more than it will hit like the perch I'm hoping it lands on, which, you know, knowing bird behavior makes sense usually because my camera, the top of it is slightly elevated over the perch I have it set up and pointing at, right? So birds love to get usually that highest perch around. So it happens over and over again. I'm like, come on, you know, they'll be like bouncing around the tripod legs and I'm like, you're everywhere but where I want. It's just maddening. And then the other thing, which I'm sure you're experiencing trying this, the rabbit project you're working on is I think a lot of people don't realize how many good telephoto shots you're just saying, I'm going to pass on these. That to me that was like the biggest shock of when I first started doing it. It's like, oh, look at that amazing shot that I can't take. Look at that amazing shot that I can't take. Like you have to accept I'm going to miss a bunch of great opportunities in the hopes, the slight chance that I may get an amazing shot.
that is, yeah, 100% it. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sitting there with my telephoto lens, but I'm like, I can't move or
Yeah.
else they're gonna scare off. And there's no way I'm like, now my telephoto just sits in the car while I'm doing it because I'm just like, there's not even any chance of
Yep.
me like doing. And yeah, I see so many shots. Like I was sitting when I do the rabbits, I'm parked right in the area. Like,
Yeah.
so I was actually sitting in my car watching the setup, and these two came out and started like courtship and mating right in front of me. But I'm in my car
You can't
with
do
my
anything.
telephoto in the back seat,
Yeah.
and like they're like jumping around and stuff, and I'm
Oh
like, you
no.
gotta be kidding me. And it's all like right off to the
To the
right of
side.
where my setup
Yeah.
is. So it's
Yep.
like, yeah. So this shot definitely, I pray for the next time Derek goes to
Yes.
do one of these. But this shot he just totally nailed.
He really did, yeah, yeah. And great point about those tones, that cool warm combo. It's something. I mean, it's mentioned over and over again on this show, but you can't pass it. It's such a great look. So, all right, here's our next one.
All right, yeah, this is just, I mean, fabulous. Like,
Yeah.
this is a, what kind of owl is this? A burrowing
Burrowing owl?
or okay,
Yeah.
it is a burrowing owl.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that, the first thing that sort of caught my attention, other than the rainbow behind him, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Is that basically all the shots I feel like you see of this particular species are all on the ground.
Yep.
So to have this, even if this is just like a little shrub or something, I don't know what this is, but having it almost like perched like any other owl is
Yes.
oddly unique.
Mhm.
It's like suddenly it looks just like all of the other ones, but that makes it like really cool and different. So I love that. I love the sort of like, you can tell by the way that the shadows and light are hitting it. It looks like it's sort of staring off into the sunset.
Oh yeah.
And then just the rainbow coming down behind. I mean, just such a perfectly lined up shot that
Yeah.
I just, yeah, it's so good and one of those dream shots for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I love how it's coming in at an angle, right? So it's not even just like blasting out straight out the top, the rainbow. It's
Right.
got a nice angle, which almost flawlessly matches the angle that the bird is kind of perched there, right? So we have like this beautiful angle of the bird there, which matches the angle that the rainbow's coming out of there, which then matches kind of like the angle of these branches going off. So there's just some really nice lines there. The little bit of, I'm guessing, cloud maybe down there, or either that or it's the top of some terrain in the background. I'm not sure. But it just kind of adds like a little base back there. That deep blue, which comes from the stormy, rainy clouds, which that's, I mean, even if the rainbow wasn't there, I'd love a shot like this because if you, and maybe you've seen it, I assume you have, if you're ever out when there's like a storm that has just cleared through, the sun pops, and then you have the sun hitting anything with that warm golden glow and then that stormy, deep blue, rich background. It's
Yeah.
just like the best dramatic light, man. And that's the point when I'm screaming, give me anything, like any
Right.
bird, I don't care, just something to photograph in this light. And it so rarely happens. So, to have that lighting setup and then yeah, I mean on top just the wonderfully intense rainbow back there that kudos to Lydia on this one. She didn't overcrank it, right? Like I feel
Yep.
like it's
Yeah.
it's you want to just grab that saturation slider and go to the max with it, right? Make it pop, but it looks legit. It looks natural. It's not just
Yeah.
like, glowing.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. Like the balance all around with the colors is just
Yeah.
amazing. And also I do love that the bird itself is, it's not the I guess most like flashy plumage, it's just a
Correct.
brown
Yeah.
bird.
Yep.
And then so it's given this like sort of juxtaposition of the intense color behind it. But yeah, it's just very, very well done, both in shooting and yeah, like you said, in post processing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I would love to hear a little bit more of the story behind this because I don't know if you've ever tried to shoot any bird lined up on a rainbow. I've done it like maybe twice, and it usually consists of me running around like a complete and utter maniac trying to line things up. This bird looks like it may have been perched there, but who knows, right? Like it could have been there for just a short window. It could have went
Right.
up there and then she was just like, "Oh my gosh," or maybe it was relaxed there a while. I don't know. But I can just imagine her out just running around trying to get this thing lined up as soon as she realized, like, oh, this is gonna happen.
Right, exactly. Yeah, totally.
All right, next shot. Nice, man. Yeah. Gray is so good at shooting a wide variety of stuff in a very creative way. I give him a lot of credit to do that. That's something you do as well. Like I feel like I just so get stuck on my birds, and I see other photos like this. I'm like, I should really. But then I'm like, yeah, but I love birds more, so whatever with the other stuff.
Right.
Anyway, love the beam of light here. Like the beam of light in the background, such a great silhouette. Very thoughtful placement. Right. This isn't just like you pick your camera up and point it and you get that. No, you have to watch your perspective, line it up. You got to wait for this. Yeah. The how do you even pronounce it? Is it anole? Anole? I always
I think
forget.
it's a knoll.
Anole.
I
Okay, yeah, we'll
think.
go with anole. Yeah, I like that. It's smoother. So got to wait for the anole to be kind of like stretched out like that. I know it's a pose that they do semi often, but it's not like they hold it all the time. Sometimes they're a little bit more flat. So that curved out pose there is so great, and then a wonderful bonus of these little bits of grasses just curved over there. I don't know why. I really like them. I think it would work fine without it, but I really enjoy seeing them there. There's just a hint of what some of that habitat is around it, and it kind of balances out that side of the frame quite nicely there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is it balances it like perfectly, I would say. And one thing well, there are a few things that I really love about this, and one of them is that a lot of like people who shoot reptiles, like that's their thing. It's basically all wide angle for the most part, or that's like sort of the standard, I would say. And so when you get a shot of this, that's obviously, I I would say semi obviously telephoto,
Yeah.
and it looks that way. It's kind of unique, and
Mhm.
then just I I don't know like maybe if I had these circumstances, I would have thought, but to silhouette a lizard is like
Yeah.
something that just like I'd never seen before. So it's just really cool. And then I love that the only light is that strip in the
Yeah.
background, and it's almost like the lizard is just sort of an extension of the shadow around it.
Yeah.
It's just and also his composition here is really really nice, having it all the way off to one side
It's
rather
pretty
than
far off,
like
but it really works. Yeah.
exactly, yeah, rather than going like strict rule of thirds,
Yep.
he sort of stretched it out a little bit, and I think it works perfectly for this.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a great point, what you just mentioned, because I think if you put this over on the third here, this whole side is just dominant. I mean, that's a huge chunk of black on that side that I think is going to take away from the nature of that narrow strip, right? I think it would kind of truncate that or shorten it. We wouldn't get as much of that strip. So, and then the last thing I noticed as you were making some other points is the legs. I think are an important part of that, right? If we didn't see those legs, then it's much harder to tell what this is
Yeah.
without that. So that really helps kind of indicate what this species is, or at least the type of animal that this is.
Yeah, and also the fact that the legs aren't one on top of the other, or like
How
if
does that
that's
happen, right? Yeah.
yeah, if that space between them
Yep.
wasn't there and it was just one giant like
Yeah.
blob, it like yeah, that in particular is like one of those fine details that really can like make or break that kind of thing.
Exactly. It's so cool when it does that. I mean, without those legs there, or even the separation of them, it could easily just be mistaken as like, oh, it's just like a branch sticking out there. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Totally.
yeah, yeah, it definitely does the trick there. So cool shot, man.
Ooh, that is nice.
Yeah,
That's a really nice one. I love immediately, of course, I'm noticing once again that sort of like cool, warm tone juxtaposition, but just sort of the impending sunlight on the rest of
yes,
the photo from just seeing it on the trees back there. Or even if it's sunset, like the
it was
idea that
sunrise
it was sunrise.
based on the caption. Yeah, I was just
Oh,
reading it.
yep, yeah, he says this morning.
Yep.
Um, Also, just yeah, I mean, big beautiful bull moose standing in the water with some fog in the background. I
Yeah.
mean, how can you go wrong? Like this is like such an amazing scene that I feel like just yeah, he captured us so well, so
Yep.
well, and gave like the mood and sort of the calm feeling, like it almost just like emanates from the photo. It's just really well done.
I'm glad you just said those two words, the calm mood, right? Because those are the things that just jump out at me from the beginning when I first saw this. Anytime I see a photo that has that low hanging steam or foggish kind of vibe to it, it just screams like calm peacefulness to me because when you experience that out yourself, that's how it is. It's just this quiet, serene, uh, wonderful time to be out there.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, and so this I can just imagine being there. The air is a little bit cooler, which is probably what's helping show that steam, right? Because it's not going to be real hot out, and you're going to get that. And yeah, completely agree with everything else you say. And I really enjoy the vertical composition on this one. I think
Yeah.
that really fits it. The moose is kind of standing a little bit taller there. It's a really proud pose there. It's not just head down. Foraging for some vegetation in the water or anything like that, which would still all be fine. But it's just a real nice, like, kind of strong pose. And I think that vertical composition really helps to kind of emphasize that to me as well. So I really appreciate it. And then the placement of the head and nose kind of right in the lightest band of that fog back there just really makes that shape stand out so well. So just a really well done composition all around.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And yeah, I love what you said about the head being sort of right in that lighter strip of fog. I also am noticing that I really like the sort of almost implied like bend in I don't know if
Oh,
this is
yeah.
a lake
Right.
or a
Yep.
river or what,
Yep.
but I love that back there, just sort of to sort of I guess set the scene even more,
Yep.
because it just adds so much more like depth to the image and to the environment.
No doubt, man. And these are the things I love this show because of this. These are the things that like we don't take the time to notice,
Right.
at
When
least
you're just
myself too,
scrolling.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm as guilty as everybody else. I say it all the time on this show, but I love being able to do this and hear other things that like I think I noticed that at some point, but I didn't really articulate it. And as soon as you say it, it's like, oh yeah, I really do appreciate that. And so all these little things that go into, we know as photographers, right? We labor over these things so many times, it's most of the shots, not everyone, right? Sometimes for me, a bird comes out, I point my camera and things just work out. That happens sometimes. But more often than not, I am thinking of all the stuff that we just talked about, and I would not in the least be surprised if Benjamin was paying attention to his composition, making sure he had space in front of there, maybe even standing up higher or lower to get that perspective where it's right in that fog line like that. Like those thoughts go through photographers' minds. And for anybody that's a beginner that doesn't understand that yet, it's something that you're going to grow into, because it comes with more time and experience. And there is thought that goes into these great photos. And I love being able to kind of point that out and celebrate that on the show. So thanks for some of those points you just made, man.
Yeah. And also what you just mentioned, the perspective, which I feel like, a lot of, I guess, tips that people would give, say, beginner wildlife photographers is get eye level, get eye level, get eye level. And I feel like this, I don't know what the circumstances are, but in theory, this could have been right on water level. He could have gotten like the reflection or something. And that I feel like in the sort of, I guess, vein of photography that I guess like you and I and most of these people sort of inhabit, that would be sort of the go-to move. And so I really like that he took this higher perspective, and sort of, I guess gave up what is normally considered that favorable eye level, kind of thing for what this image ended up being, which is just a fantastic scene and really evokes a strong mood.
Yeah, it's a great point. That this perspective, right, this slightly higher perspective would lose three of the things that we pointed out together collectively that we really enjoyed about this. One being the placement of the head in the lighter area. Two, seeing that amount of fog in the first place, because now that we're elevated, we get to see a little bit more of it that kind of stretches back there. And then three, that curving back into that cove or the river bend or whatever. All of that kind of disappears when you get water level and flatten everything out. You know what I mean? So it is an interesting and a great point that this seems like and feels like the right perspective for this shot.
Yep, totally.
Nice. All right, next one. Oh, dude, love this image, man. I think he has a series of stuff that are just super graphical like this, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right? Did you have to pick from a few of them, or?
I think I did. I always, if I'm scrolling and I see something that I really like, I just save it right away. So when you invited me on the show here, I just went and scrolled through that, and I saw this one, and immediately I was like, that one's going. And he does a lot of this stuff, and he's so good at it. He's so good
exactly. At it. Yeah. Another term I use quite often, but it's so graphical to me. Definitely in the minimalist side of things as well, which I certainly appreciate and love. And symmetry, so good, leaving it vertically centered. So we have the complete symmetry top and bottom. Basically a straight up mirror reflection there. Maybe in a high res photo, you could see some indications of the difference between the reflected bird at the bottom and not at top, but at a quick look here on Instagram, they look darn near the same as far as clarity goes. So insanely calm water and great processing. It's white but not, it's white, but look, he didn't go like 100% pure white, because you can actually see like the edge of the frame against the white border he's got right there. You know what I mean? So it's like he didn't like crank this thing to the max. He kind of left it where it feels right, and great detail in the bird, and that takeoff pose is so good. Going back to some of those rules that we all kind of instill upon ourselves and are passed along, one of the things is always just like, make sure there's more space in the direction, like into the frame. You want birds looking into the frame. You want your subject looking into the frame, flying into the frame, and not out. Out is the right call on this one. This is so good, flying out of the frame like that. There's this anticipation of this is the last fleeting glimpse of this bird before it's just gone out to wherever it goes. And I absolutely love that feeling that this photo gives. And I mean, just incredible. It's so cool how each one of these single sticks becomes an arrow pointing in a direction as well. I absolutely love that. And then there's opposite pointing arrows right here, opposite pointing arrows right here, and then we got this one, in the middle as well. I mean, it's just so cool, right? Cool shot without the bird, over the top wildlife shot with the bird. Love it.
Right. Yeah, totally. And sort of jumping off what you were saying about how it's flying out of the frame. I also love, and one thing that I really love, I guess from a lot of abstract photography, but just in general, is almost like giving a sense of wonder about where it was shot. And that doesn't necessarily mean not having any environment. And like even in Benjamin's shot that we were just looking at, yep. Like there's a sense of sort of like wonder, and like it draws you into where it is. Yes. And I love the sort of mystery of this one in that regard, where like the bird, like you said, he's going off to somewhere, wherever he's going, and you can't tell. Like for all you know, it's just going off into the wild white ether here.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I love that. And also just the fact that this shot just like goes above and beyond photography or like being a photo, and like immediately just becomes like a fine art piece.
It's an art piece, no doubt.
Yeah, like this is the kind of thing that like people put on their wall. Yep. And just because it's a fantastic piece of art, like yep. There are so many ways to do wildlife photography, and that it's kind of just like, look at this bird I saw, mm-hmm. And it's just like a normal crop with a normal picture of a normal yep. bird. But this just like completely, shatters all of that, and yeah. the ability to make nature into an art piece like that is so, it's just fantastic, and he does it so well. And also I'm reading the caption, he says backlight, and it got me thinking about the textures in the wings and the tail. Yeah. I have to wonder if those would have come through if it had not been backlight, Yep. Like that's some, and looking at this, you don't immediately think backlight, but like that's such an important piece of it, is those textures, those little tiny details in the feathers. Yeah. And if it didn't have that, like I feel like obviously it'd still be a fantastic image, but sure. it would feel like, I feel like that almost gives it like, that's the only sense of depth in the photo. Yep. And it's perfectly placed. And if it didn't have that, it would feel a little flatter.
Yeah, to me, it gives that bird a little bit more lightness, a little bit more airiness to it, instead of being heavy, dark, black like everything else, right? It still has that in the body, but the edges have that almost, and I don't mean it in a not sharp way, but that softness to them,
Right. Yeah, totally. And I also love what you were saying about the arrows created by the sticks and everything.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so, and also I love what you said about him not fully blowing it out to like the highest key possible, yep. to keeping the darker shades, because it gives it, like you said, like a more just like genuine, like
yes,
feeling, like yep. You're not just looking at something. Like I posted a picture a few days ago of a Canada goose with some branches, and it was like pure black and white. Like I completely like took all of the blacks down, all of the whites up, and gotcha. Like it looks nothing like the original photo. And he could have gone that route, right? Exactly. Yeah. It's everything has its place.
Sure.
And he could have done that with this, but that very subtle piece of it, just like it gives it a totally different look.
Very much agree with you on that one, man. Yeah. I as soon as I saw this, I'm like, oh, nice choice.
Oh, wow. That is cool. Okay, that's not grass in its hair. That's just its hair.
Yeah. Yep.
This is really cool. So I feel like my immediate thought is that I feel like I don't see very many pictures at all of wild horses. Agreed. Like they're such an underutilized piece of nature.
Yep.
So that was sort of my first thought. And so immediately I'm kind of brought in by that. I like seeing when people shoot things that aren't sort of the normal, I guess, what everybody else would do.
Yep.
And just the backlighting is so good with the fog. And I guess, is that fog or dust that it's kicking up? I
It's
guess
dust,
it
I
is
think.
dust.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Well, either way, I mean,
Is my
that almost
guess.
makes it better, is you can't quite tell, but you know, it thinking about it as dust definitely also gives that action sense to the photo, and with the hair going everywhere and everything, it gives such a sense of drama where, you know, like this horse is doing something, it's
Mm-hmm.
going somewhere.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, the pose is really great. I love the inclusion of the brush in the bottom with the
Yes.
little backlit like stems coming out of it. That I think makes the photo like that much more engaging, because I mean, I feel like it gets said a lot, but like, you know, it would work without it.
Yep.
But having it in there just gives it that extra dimension and extra sense of environment that,
Yes. It
and
places
also,
it
exactly, yeah, and also the very subtle on the right side, sort of halfway up, the sort of subtle yeah,
right
grass
in
in the
there.
background that's
Yep.
also backlit there. It's
Yep.
just, yeah, overall, just I think the thing that really stands out in this photo to me is just light. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's such an incredible use of light, that I think fits it so well.
Yeah, it's funny. You were asking, you're like, I think it's dust. And I'm like, I'm all confident. I'm like, yes, it's dust. And I'm like, oh, wait, is it? I don't know. But yeah, there is a keyword down here or a
Oh,
hashtag for
yep,
dust. So
yep,
that is
there it
good.
is.
So I wasn't totally off base on that. Because it definitely looked like to me, there's a couple of things, like words that come to mind. The first one is just powerful. Like that's just, this image is so powerful of this the stallion. It just really screams that. And then what you touched on a lot of, right? A sense of motion. There's, I think it's so cool when a still photo, a frozen moment in time, can capture a sense of movement, and this one does it exponentially in a bunch of ways. You know, I can imagine that half of that dust or all of that dust was kicked up by this individual, or maybe there's more around it. The just like you said, there's just these the mane just flying all crazy and looking all dreadlocky. It's not all like
Right.
brushed out like we see like your fancy horses and stuff like that. Like it's gnarly looking, which gives this horse so much character. And yeah, exactly what you said. The sense of light there is really good. And you know, it's interesting. I'd love to hear your opinion on this because one of the things that happens to me a lot when I see photos of these wild horses is, especially if I just see like a nice standard standing out there portrait, is it doesn't feel wild to me somehow. And I have to kind of consciously remind myself like, oh no, these are just, they're just out there surviving. It's not like somebody took care of them. They're in a big field. No, this is like, this is their, they are truly wildlife. And so I wonder how many people kind of have that misunderstanding or misrepresentation of these as being, you know, wildlife, and maybe either don't target them as wildlife photography subjects, or just don't see them that way when they view photos of it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, and I think I do sort of subconsciously suffer from that as well, where,
Yeah,
you know, I see, and like, you know, it's just your brain sees a horse and it goes like farm animal, you know.
totally, exactly. Because
So
we're taught
it's
that, isn't it? We're like taught it from kids, you know.
right,
Yeah,
exactly. But like, yeah, I feel like that might be one of the reasons that I like it so much, is because it's totally like, not only are they not really sought out subjects, but it also totally like breaks that, I guess,
yeah,
like preconception
yep.
of horses, and like says like, no, you know, these are like the real deal,
It
you
doesn't
know.
get more wild than this photo. Like it just
Right,
screams
exactly,
that
yeah.
in every way. Yeah, so I love that about this.
Yeah, so yeah, I think I definitely feel similarly to you, where it's like I have to, when I see a picture of horses, I do have to like remind myself like, oh right, yeah, these are, you know, this is wildlife, you know.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Oh, nice, man. So many. this place is a place I got to visit sometime, man. It looks like such a blast, you know. It
Right.
really does. Um, Beautiful use of wide angle. It really is. I love the story that this tells of these swans just cruising along the ice, like just walking all in line like that. Um, the scenery ridiculously gorgeous. I love how they're, just really nicely lined up along the shoreline there as well. So we have the angled shoreline kind of going here, but then they're angled as well. And then there's like a continuation in this weird frozen line that's in there that continues off that way, that basically meets the back horizon of the lake. Super wide angle too. You can see, this is definitely an extremely wide angle. This isn't like 35 millimeter, or it's probably, I would guess it's even wider than 24. I don't know, but you can definitely see some stretching on this swan and the clouds. But that's some of the exaggeration I love. Like, I love that those clouds are kind of like pointing down into the frame because of that wide angle extreme view there. And then just the, like, here's the safety, here's your shoreline, right? This is where you can stay. Like, we can't go out there, I'm guessing, or maybe, I don't know how frozen solid it is, but it just kind of tells that story to me. And then the last thing that I really enjoy about this, well, other than like the beautiful scenery back there, is the colors. The color scheme on this is just absolutely beautiful. Just muted kind of pastels. Nothing's too overly punchy. It's not in your face color, but at the same time, it's a colorful image. And so I really enjoy that. Again, both, I assume maybe with the edit, but maybe the scene was just kind of like that. It could be a real minimal edit. I don't know. But either way, whether it was just, captured that way or handled that way in post, it's expertly done. And I really think it gives a nice feeling and mood to this image.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you nailed a lot of it. I also there are a few things that really jump out of this image to me. First of all, I love that, mostly in wildlife, you want the subject facing the camera or at profile,
Yeah.
something like that, not a rabbit jumping away from your wide angle setup. Um, and he totally flips that on his head here and has all of them walking, they're sort of walking to the right, but away
Yeah.
from the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like you were sort of saying about like telling the story of the image, it totally does that, I think. And if they were, just sort of walking like right perpendicular to the lens, it would be definitely be something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I really like that aspect of it. I also love it sort of implied sunset, sort of like
Yes.
you can see that the sun is obviously off to the left here,
Yep.
and you got like the sort of yellower tones in the ice and the sky, and then turning into the pink as it goes to the right.
Yeah.
I really like that. And also, I personally am really, really, really a sucker for winter sunsets. Like, that is
Mm.
my favorite. Like, there, even if it's just like I'm hanging out with geese, which is most of what I end up hanging out with in the wintertime around here, even if I'm not trying.
You had
Um,
you had some fun struggles with those ducks last year. I know that. You
yeah.
put in your time, dude. You put in your time. So
Yeah. I'm gonna try to do better with that this coming year and figure out some better spots. But being out there at sunset in the
mm,
wintertime, like there's really nothing quite like it. The stillness, and there's so many less, like so fewer people out there as well. So like the chances that you will just be alone with, say, like the birds, as these really soft sort of like winter tones in the sky that you can see here.
yeah.
um you, like you were saying about the mood, I guess, is
Hmm.
sort of what I'm getting at. But for me personally, that I started photography on, like, during a winter sunset. That
Gotcha.
was the first picture I ever took on my iPhone 5, and you can scroll all the way back through my Instagram account and
Nice,
see it. I've never deleted
dude.
anything or like
Yes,
started.
love it.
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not
Good job.
advising it, but
Yeah.
you can. and
Yes.
and and so I think that is also sort of why this image is sort of jumps out at me, is because the winter sunset scene sort of has a special place for me
Nice.
personally. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really love how well this captures that.
so good when another photographer's photo can connect you to something, right? So I'm guessing you've never been to Hokkaido in Japan.
I have not, no.
Okay, perfect. But, so something all the way taken, on the entire other side of the world can still connect you to a moment in nature that you've experienced with or without wildlife. And that's such a powerful thing that wildlife and photography in general can do for us.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Next up.
Ooh, that's nice. I I love this one because I wasn't sure at the very first moment of taking a glance whether or not it was shoreline or like branches that I was seeing the sandpiper person on. And I was like, oh, there's a reflection. It's got to be water.
Yeah.
That like I love the sort of use of negative space here, but it's not completely negative space. Like there are still green tones in the water and everything.
Yep.
But it gives it this sort of sense of the subject, like I guess floating there, almost like balanced on these little tufts of, I guess, grass that are coming up through the water. And also just that piece of the environment that I feel like that's sort of a unique thing to show, most shorelines, especially with, I guess this is what kind of
spotted.
Okay, it is spotted.
Yep.
I posted a spotted today. And
Nice.
most of the time when you see them, it's like a rocky shoreline, or the one I posted was just like on a log. And
Yep.
I think that I love the textures.
Yes.
and everything in this sort of like watery, like mossy grass stuff. Really, really love that. And then I love how the orange beak really jumps out in that darkness around it. Yeah, I think those are sort of the things that jump out to me. And also I love the lines, the sort of leading lines here.
Yes.
It's sort of like, it almost like, they say there's like your eye always travels through I feel like your eye starts in two places here and then like meets in the middle.
Yeah.
And I really love that as well.
Yeah. That was the one thing I was going to add if you didn't get to it. That it really did that kind of the curve that happens from that negative space there is great. And yeah, the first thing that struck me is the same thing that happened to you. Is I had to kind of slow down, double take, because I'm like, what am I looking at? And I love a photo that does that. And then as soon as you register it, you're like, oh, that's so cool.
Right.
There's just this instant recognition. At first, it's a questioning, and then it switches to instant recognition and appreciation of what the photographer did. And that's exactly what happened to me the first time I viewed this. And it seemed to be the same thing that happened to you, which I love, So it definitely, this is a photo that has that feeling to it, because I wasn't the only one that had that kind of experience viewing it up, on first time. And the texture, so cool. And it almost looks like it should be sinking on what it's standing on there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
But there's just, you always forget how unbelievably light these birds are, even the, medium-sized spotted sandpiper like that. And it just has no problem just hanging out right on the edge there. And, I can just imagine, like, there it is, tail bobbing away, like that's just what they do,
Yeah.
So.
I also love the ripples coming out in front of it.
From probably a little movement on his part. Yeah. Exactly. It's probably his stupid tail constantly bobbing makes his body move.
Right.
They can't hold still. It's impossible for them.
Yeah. Well, that's why I love birds. I love the like water thrushes and all those. I love those ones that just constantly move. And it's like,
you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, even if it's like way too far away for pictures, you can just sit there and watch it and just like laugh because they're so amusing. But yeah.
It is. Yeah. Gotta love good, amusing birds. A photo that has kind of the similar context of what we were just talking about, right? Like at first I'm like, what on earth am I looking at? And I don't know that I've ever actually taken the time to fully try to figure out what I'm looking at, but I think I get it. I'm guessing this is just bird standing on the shoreline. Spoonbill, Limpkin. Okay.
Yep, Limpkin.
Limpkin standing on the shoreline. And then that's just silhouetted against the reflection of the sky in this small lake or whatever it is there. But unbelievably creative shot from Caleb, man.
What else is new?
What's that?
I said, what else is new?
Yeah,
it's really, like his entire gallery.
I know. Yeah.
It's so good.
Know. He is so good. Yeah. I just had him on the previous episode of this.
Oh, really?
One right before that. Yeah. So he was on picking out some photos and chatting about it with me. So But yeah, really great photographer, very thoughtful photographer, and this shows, right? Like how many photographers would shoot this way? That to me is such an impressive thing. So I'll talk first about what I love, and then I want to elaborate more on that concept. But I love this curve of space there. I love that we're kind of almost tricked. It like we're looking down, obviously, but we're seeing up.
Right. Yep.
That's such kind of a mind f. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it really does, like, it just takes you like, what am I looking at here? And it almost throws me off scale wise too, because if I try to connect a shot like this to any shots I've seen in the past that are similar, what always comes to mind is puddle photography. That's when I see like this sort of thing. And so if I'm imagining a bird like that on like a tiny puddle, I'm like, oh, this bird is like, a 1/4 inch big, right? But it's not. Like, this is a big scale photo here, Limkin, or a larger bird. And so when I extrapolate that out, I'm like, oh, this is a big pond and body of water that it's on there. So that is another part of what kind of messes with my mind and takes me a minute to kind of understand and register. Great editing, great contrast. I love this is one where I do love that punchy contrast. Like, he hit this hard with some contrast. This isn't just like a nice, flat raw file. He definitely punched this one up with some contrast, and it works well. And then like seeing, again, right, we're seeing a tree line upside down. So just yet another thing to kind of mess with your mind there. And, that is what makes this photo so interesting. It forces you to stop and look at it. And going back to one of the first things I was saying, how many photographers would come upon a scene like this? And I don't think there's very many that would even entertain trying to shoot it like that. I know for myself, I don't know that I would even remotely see this scene in that, because most of us are so zeroed in on the bird. And, maybe I would do like a telephoto silhouette of it and maybe get some interesting, out of focus sky cloud color back there. But something like this, there's no way I would have shot this. And it just really shows how good this photographer's eye is, especially at his age.
Yep. Yeah, totally. I think you really, really nailed just about everything. I do love, he actually says at the end of the caption there, I really like the cavernous feel of this image. And I really love how, if you think about it, you can almost picture that you're looking like you're standing in a cave looking out of the entrance, and this Limkin is standing, maybe he's like the guard of the cave or something. But I also love, like, this looks photoshopped. Like it looks like a graphic design piece, or like a digital art piece or something. It looks fake. And if you're doing that right, because there's definitely a way to do it wrong, if you're doing that right, you're good. Like, you're really, really good. And I think that this totally nails that. I love how it almost looks like almost like a plume of smoke that you're seeing the scene in.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it's so well done. And I think you nailed just about everything else.
Nice. All right, here we go. Last image. Hitting another moose.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I love wide angle. I am all here. I mean, I'm assuming this is why it doesn't look telephoto.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's no way. Yeah, you really nailed it for this last. I've been so obsessed with wide angle, so I am immediately on board here. Yeah, you can't beat that. I guess this has to be Teton. Yeah, Grand Teton. That's definitely pretty unmistakable. You just can't beat that scenery. And I love, once again, the subject technically like facing out of the frame, which is normally undesirable, but works, I think, perfectly. You can get a sense of motion from all the ripples in the water of this moose going about its, I guess, evening or morning routine. And just those mountains in the background, man, you just like, it's quintessential is how I would describe this photo. It's just so well done.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, how many landscape photographers have shot this scene just as a landscape, but then this is, obviously a wildlife photo. It's a
Right.
wildlife photo that has incredible landscape. Agree with the sense of motion from the ripples, so it's not completely static. I do like that. The lighting, just incredible, warm lighting coming in there. I love the large tree kind of framing and anchoring this side. And then because it is kind of walking out of the frame, the majority of the higher mountains are kind of filling in this space behind it, which, and I think this is what makes sense, right? So there's reason for it to be composed that way, and this unbelievably beautiful visual is that reason, so I love that. And I really love that they didn't crop out the foreground here. This makes it feel like, as the viewer, I'm standing right there, because there's this boundary, this element of the grass that I'm seeing that I feel like, as a viewer, I must have to look through, to peer over to see this. And, obviously I don't have to actually move to see that in the photo here, but it's just, to me, there's a difference between that and if the photo just starts right there, or doesn't have any of this foreground for that matter. It always just feels more like I'm embedded in the scene as a viewer when there's that element of foreground that helps give me depth and layers to get into that scene as a viewer. And I absolutely love when photographers do that. So that was a nice little touch on this photo that made me really appreciate it as well.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point, because, like, someone might look at that bush, another photographer, let's say, and say, oh, it's obstructing, the scene. But
Exactly.
no, it like I want to say like 50% of like the positive comments that I get, mostly on like Facebook for my photos, is people saying that like the foreground really puts them in the scene and helps them engage in the photo. That's like 50% of it. Nice. And so it's so important. And I'm really glad you pointed that out, because that is it. Yeah, it totally just puts you right there. Like you are, seeing this yourself.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, definitely. Now, there's an art to using it properly. That doesn't mean you can just throw any old foreground in there and it's going to magically do that. A lot of the times it can do what you just said, right? It can be a distraction. It can be in the way. But this is a flawless use of it, because it also completes the roundness of this pond. Like, I feel like the edge, I can see it starting to arch in a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And then this kind of completes like a nice circle here. Like, the actual shoreline goes way down here, but having these, especially this bush on the right, just really helps kind of make, like, all of a sudden this is the pool of water right here instead of the pool of water going way back there. And it actually makes the moose feel more balanced, almost centered in this visible pool of water, even though the actual pool of water continues on both sides, but compositionally it continues way out over here. So it works on many levels, definitely.
Yeah, totally. And I think it also just, it really contain, like you were saying about the tree on the left side, it really like anchors in the photo on the right to have that sort of obstruction there to sort of keep your eye in the photo.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And I see we just lost my camera, so let me see if I can get that back up real quick here. Hopefully that'll do the trick. There we go. I'm back. All right. Well, I guess that's a good time to wrap. My camera's just telling me like, hey, you got to stop now. No, this is definitely a longer episode, but I love it, man. We had a lot of great stuff to talk about. So this was a ton of fun. Kyle, thank you so much for joining me on this one, man. You picked some great images, and it was great to get to talk to you about them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having. I was really, really excited to come on here, and I'm like I said, I'm always saving the pictures that I love, and so to get to sort of take advantage of that and put those out there is just a lot of fun. And you picked some great images as well, and some people that I guess I'm gonna have to go seek out and follow now.
Excellent.
If I'm not already. So yeah, thanks so much for having me on. This was so much fun.
Yeah, you're very welcome, dude. Good luck with the rabbits. Look forward to seeing what you get with that. And I'm sure even if it takes a while, you'll update us on some stories. I always enjoy seeing that from you. So thanks for that.
For sure. Yep.
All right.
Thanks, man.
All right, man. Take it easy. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Really appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'll see you guys next Saturday.